So the women, they were women 60 up into their 80s. They would come in, they do the training, take personality tests pre and post. They had the same range of benefits as the younger people who'd done the training. But then we started bringing them back at 6 months. And to our astonishment, their personality profiles were better 6 months later than they were the day or days after the training. And I'm
Mm,
going like, "Now how can this be?" Another 6 months go by, we bring them back at the 12-month follow-up, and there were further improvements.
mm.
This is when I realized that we're not doing treatment, we're doing transformation. If you change your brainwaves, you change your experience. If you change your
Yes.
brainwaves enough, you change your identity. This is what we call transformation or transcendence.
Yes, and you like to say that that's the person is becoming their real self, their
Mhm.
authentic self. It's who
Yeah.
they are that's been covered up by ego and anxiety and trauma, unhealed forgiveness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That begins to be dissolved,
Mhm.
transmuted, and then who they really are shows up.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind.
Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome to Take Back Your Mind. I am the host, Michael B. Beckwith, the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center. And every week I get to have wonderful conversation and dialogue with individuals who have done that in their own life, who've opened up their heart, taken back their own mind, and are making mighty contributions on the planet, affecting the world now and unto the future. And today I am with Dr. James Hardt. Dr. James, how are you, brother?
So happy to see you again, brother Michael.
This is great. For those of you who do not know who this man is, I'm going to give you a little bit of his bio. He's the founder of the BioCybernaut Institute, expert in training and brainwave feedback, biofeedback. He's devoted his life to the study of electrophysiological basis of advanced spiritual states and has traveled the globe in pursuit of his research to India, especially to study advanced yogis with his technology. BioCybernaut has centers located in the United States and Germany. It offers 7-day intensive brainwave training programs as a part of its integrative neurotransformation work, providing effective means to remove emotional traumas and baggage that can limit an individual's progress in life. From Zen masters to Christian prayer, for over 40 years, James has continued his relentless pursuit of advanced brainwave and meditation connections that allow people to become the best form of themselves that they can possibly be. His findings have been published in numerous scholarly journals such as Science, Psychophysiology, the Journal of Experimental Psychology, Advances in Mind, Body Medicine, EC Psychology, and Psychiatry. And that's just to name a few. Anyway, just to be totally transparent, I know James, and I have gone through BioCybernaut on a number of occasions. And I've always said to him, you know what? I want you to be on my podcast. I want you to tell people about this. So, Brother Jim, as I call you sometimes, let's go back to the beginning. How did you get into biofeedback? How did you get into brainwave biofeedback? What happened in your life? Because you don't share your age, so we're not going to get into that. But you've been doing this for years. What was the genesis of this work, the great work that you do?
Thank you, brother Michael. I was a physics uh, major at Carnegie Institute of Technology in Pittsburgh. It was the fall semester. I came out of the student union after lunch, and there was a big hand-painted sign where every letter was a slightly different color. And it said, Dr. Joe Camilla will talk on brainwaves and consciousness. And it gave it time that was, just 10 minutes away. The building was right across the tennis courts, and I didn't have a class, so I went. And I experienced a talk by the man who discovered 5 years earlier that humans could voluntarily control their own brainwaves if they were given feedback. Well,
Mm.
he and I began a correspondence. He was at University of California, San Francisco. So in the spring, when I graduated with my bachelor's degree in physics, I jumped on my Triumph motorcycle and I rode up into Canada and across the Trans-Canadian Highway, sleeping in barns along the way. And then down I-5, got off at San Francisco, showed up at his lab and volunteered as a research subject. I was quite primitive in those days, and it was the summer of love. This was when the hippies had taken over San Francisco. And I had 3 days in a row, about an hour each. One channel feedback from the middle of the back of my head turned into a tone that would wax and wane as my alpha grew and shrank. And every 2 minutes, I'd get a score. And this was the most fascinating thing I'd ever done in my life. So day 4, I went back. I wanted more. They weren't doing any studies. But I'd gotten to know Dr. Kamiya's girlfriend, Joanne Gardner, who was in the lab. And I went to her office and said, Joanne, would you take me downstairs, put a couple electrodes on, put me in the chamber so I could play? She goes, oh, sure. And so she did. And then she went upstairs after starting the equipment, forgot I was there, later went to lunch and with 9 other members of the lab crew. And in course 11 of a 12-course Chinese lunch, she goes, oh my God, there's somebody in the chamber. And they all raced out of the restaurant, sped across town, ran into the building, ripped open the door of the chamber and interrupted the late stages of a most incredible adventure. Now, I had gone in there as a Protestant fundamentalist physics major. I had never done drugs. I had no idea what altered states were. And in those 3 or 4 hours, I had had out-of-body experience. I was flying around the universe. I had ego disintegration. I was meeting up with discorporate entities, conscious things that didn't have bodies. Whew, it was quite a lot. When the door was opened, it was like, oh, what planet are you people from? For the next 3 days, I walked around and my feet didn't touch the ground. I was still out of body. So that was the genesis. But then soon
Wow.
summer was over, and I rode my motorcycle back across the country to what had now become Carnegie Mellon University, registered for a PhD program in psychology, and went up the hill to talk with Rolf von Eckertsberg, who had been a grad student under Timothy Leary at Harvard. He'd taken tons of LSD and lived at the community at Millbrook for a while, and he and I had become friends. So I walked into his office. He took one look at me, saw I was different, and goes, like, sit down. And with one hand, he swept everything off his desk and he folded his hand. And he goes, what's happened to you? And
Mm.
so for the next roughly 3.5 hours, I told him in detail what had happened. At the end of that, he smiled and he said, we can do that here. And I go, oh my God. So it was no longer just something really cool that had happened to me. And it wasn't a job and it wasn't a profession. It wasn't a career. It was a vocation. And I love the way that you had said earlier, relentless pursuit.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
Yes.
you.
I
That's
know
how
that
it
energy.
started.
I know that energy. I know it. I know that energy.
You are it.
Because when I woke up myself, it's a relentless pursuit of what happened.
Yeah,
What does it mean? And it
yeah,
was the most important thing ever. Everything else
100%.
pales in significance
Yep.
to that moment of
Yeah.
awakening and
Goosebumps.
what it means
Goosebumps.
and what it means.
Yes.
So you were locked in this chamber for 3 or 4 hours and you came out different. You came out more yourself,
Yep.
your real self.
Yep.
And
You
so
understand.
when did you actually found BioCybernaut? When did that I mean, obviously you went through many iterations, you got your PhD, you
Yeah.
did a lot, but
Couple of
eventually
years after I got my PhD, actually it was on America's bicentennial. On the
Mhm.
4th of July, 1976, in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, we had a CPA willing to work on a holiday, and we founded BioCybernaut Institute, Inc.
Let me ask you this, you've worked with meditators, executives, ministers, you've even worked with royalty. What did you notice was a common thread among all these people? What were they seeking? What was the common thread of what pulled them to see BioCybernaut, to see James Hardt?
Well, there are 2 different themes that work in the same direction. One is to get rid of bad thoughts and feelings,
Mhm,
traumas, things that are you can get rid of with deep forgiveness. And the other is wanting to get high and feel good.
mhm.
And so we know the brain waves for both, and they're trainable. And so in order to have the highest highs, you do have to do some house cleaning.
Yes.
You have to
For
do the forgiveness to get rid of the anger, the fear, the sadness,
Mhm. So basically, people were seeking one or the other, or a combination of both.
and sometimes just curious.
Mhm. Break down exactly what biocybernaut training is.
What is BioCybernaut training? Okay. Well, people scheduled to be with us here in Sedona or in Bavaria, Germany for 7 consecutive days. And they come in, and we have maybe 3 hours of orientation on the first day. We show them the soundproof chambers in which they will sit, in which they will hear the activity of their brain converted into beautiful musical sounds, flutes, oboes, clarinets, saxophones, organs. And then while we're doing orientation, the technicians are measuring their heads and putting on these little gold disc electrodes, which you pretty almost immediately forget about. And so then you go into the chamber and sit in a comfortable upright chair. And the first thing you do are mood scales. You have a keyboard in front of you and a screen, and emotion words like friendly, clear thinking, sleepy, unhappy, dizzy will appear one at a time on the screen. And you push a button to indicate how much of that you're feeling. 0 would be not at all, 4 would be extremely, and other numbers in between. Meanwhile, your brain waves are being measured. Then we do standard EEG baselines, one with eyes open, another with eyes closed, and another you have eyes closed and you're listening to white noise, kind of like shh, with at random intervals, a little beep will be there, and your task is to count the beeps. Then we do practice for lowering your alpha. Now, your brain waves at different places in your head have converted into sound like bum, 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 and the speakers are around you. And when you make alpha at any one of those places, that appropriate speaker with that tone comes on. If the alpha gets smaller, the tone gets quieter. If the alpha
Right.
gets bigger, the tone gets louder. And so the first thing you do is you practice lowering your alpha, then you have a bathroom break, and then you practice raising your alpha. And the time is divided into 2-minute intervals where you listen, eyes closed, to your brainwaves. And what you're doing are two things.
Mhm.
You're listening to the variations in the tones, and you're also tracking variations in your awareness. Like, am I having a thought? Is it a good thought? Is it a bad thought? Maybe I'm having a feeling. Is it a good feeling, a bad feeling? And as the variations in your awareness you track, you begin to notice that the tones are on the same schedule. If
Mhm.
if your thoughts completely stop, the alpha gets really loud. If you go from a bad thought to a good thought, the tones get a little bit louder. And so with this feedback, like a baby, comes out of the womb and it doesn't know how to coordinate its visual and its, you put a rattle in front of the baby and the arm goes like that or like that. And with practice, the arm goes right to where the rattle is because the baby learns feedback between position and the eyes. Here, you're learning how to control your brain waves, which makes you masterful in everything you want to do in life.
Mhm. This is powerful. What they're being hooked up to is a polygraph situation, right? It's polygraph,
Polygraph means many graphs. Yes. Uh-huh.
and as well as brainwave feedback.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you're
In the
measuring.
olden days, we used paper polygraphs with ink writing, and
Mhm,
now it's all electronic. So the brainwaves scroll across an electronic polygraph.
mhm. Now, what are the pillars of training?
Can you be a little more precise?
I was pulling this from your book.
Uh-huh. Okay.
In terms of, I know you train, I know you teach, you train people with alpha, you train people with theta, you
Oh,
train
yes.
certain people with delta,
Hmm.
so there are different pillars in that way. So
Hmm.
most people come from the alpha training, right?
Well, that's number one.
Mhm,
Yeah, that you can't do any other training until you start with alpha. It's like Brainwave 101.
mhm,
Now, in my research, I've seen that in the Alpha 1 training, alpha starts at the back of the head, spreads forward on the head, slows in frequency, and theta waves begin to emerge from the frontal location. That's exactly the pattern of advanced Zen. But the
Mhm.
way Zen is done in Japan, it takes a minimum of 21 years to develop that brainwave pattern. With the feedback at BioCybernaut, you can do it in a week.
Right. I remember you were showing me my own charts where I was producing delta, and then
Mhm.
you showed me that I was developing the beginning of a halo, situation,
Pattern. Yeah.
halo pattern, and
Mhm.
a angelic being able to see angels and things of this
Mhm.
particular nature, which is
Mhm.
quite interesting. I mean, I've always appreciated when I've gone down there. And then obviously there's that what day is that? That 3rd or 4th day that all hell seems to break loose?
Well, people typically will have an ego attack on
Yeah,
day 4. If I may tell a story about a training that just concluded, we
please.
had a man in training on day 5, and at the beginning of the day, he changed his intention to dedicate himself fully to God,
Mm,
fully to God. And then he added to the intention that he wanted to dedicate his life even more fully to God. Well, guess what? He had an ego attack that day. Ego was not pleased with someone making a dedication like that. And so he was able, with the coaching of Grace, one of our brilliant trainers, to get through it. And it just basically floated out of here yesterday. But yes, ego attacks are very real.
and the ego attacks is basically happen when somebody's about to break a breakthrough, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
They're about to come out of their regular
Yep.
paradigm, their regular way of thinking about themselves. So the ego does not want that. The ego is
Yep.
trying to keep you protected within your own personality construct. And if you try to break out, it attacks. It keeps you small, so to speak.
If you break out, ego, there's less of you there that it can control. And ego, being a control freak, doesn't want you to evolve spiritually. In
Mhm,
fact, in 2006, somebody put into my hands a tiny little book. It was called The Zen Ox Herding Stories, and it
mhm.
contained the what were called the 5 hindrances to spiritual growth: doubt,
Right.
drowsiness, distractibility and worry, aversion, any form of ill will, and boredom. Now, to
Mhm.
that list, I've added forgetfulness, but this came from the distilled wisdom of 1,000 years of Zen practice in Japan, where monks would go to their Zen master at the end of the day and debrief. And the Zen masters recognized these hindrances are the tools that ego uses to suppress you and to keep you small, to keep you from spiritual growth. And when you
Abs
know that that's what it is, like if you're sitting in the chamber doing great, and all of a sudden your right knee starts to itch unexpectedly, and you
Mhm.
can go, ego, I see you trying to use the distractibility hindrance on me. Get out of here.
Right, 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 right. Um, Now, obviously, you've measured gains in creativity,
Mhm.
IQ,
Yep.
EQ, emotional
Yep.
and how do you actually measure these particular things?
Oh, it's wonderful. Well, the IQ test, we used a very famous, it's called the Kaufman Adolescent and Adult Intelligence Test. And in that study, we had people who were from 10 years of age to 64 years of age. And we did the study in such a way that we did the post study, in some cases the day after the training ended, others a week after, a month after, 6 months after, all the way out to a year, because we wanted to see if there was any correlation with the IQ gain depending on how far out it was. This is a very sophisticated way statistically to see if there's any fading of the boost in IQ. There was no boost. There was no fading. And instead, there was actually a slight non-significant tendency for the IQ to be rising even a year later.
Mm, mm. And creativity?
Creativity, that was done with a group of Stanford Research Institute scientists. The control group was Silicon Valley electronic engineers and computer programmers. And we used what's called the alternate uses test, where you get a little booklet and it's timed, and you open the booklet to the first page and there's a word there, like say newspaper, and then you have just a few minutes to write down all the possible alternative uses for newspaper. And then the time is up, you flip the page and there's another word. Creative people come up with longer lists. And
Mhm.
so the Silicon Valley engineers had no change in their creativity.
Mm,
Whereas because they didn't do the alpha training. The ones that did the alpha training, their average increase was 50%. This is their bread and butter. A 50% increase in creativity. Some of them solved problems in the alpha chamber that they'd been beating their heads against for 2 years without any progress. The answers would just come in alpha.
wow, yeah, this is magnificent. And then you also have discovered that there was a reduction in anxiety and even addictions.
Yes.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is
Yes. Well, with anxiety, that's actually been like the one of the pillars of the research. It was actually a theme of my doctoral dissertation. We used the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory. Its first factor is called Welsh A, or Welsh anxiety. And so we found that high anxiety, it was all the subjects were males, college students, and the high anxiety people had reductions in both state anxiety and trait anxiety. State
mhm,
is like of the moment, like you almost get hit by a car, you'll be anxious for a few minutes. Trait anxiety is like a long-term characterological disposition. Well, people were impressed, but they said, well, how long does it last? So then I had the privilege to write and win a large federal grant, a 3-year federal grant from NIMH entitled Anxiety and Aging Intervention with EEG Alpha Feedback. Because it turns out that as people start to age, their alpha slows down and drops out, and then they go into dementia. And so this is a way to actually pull people back into mental clarity, to reverse aging in the brain. Now, because of the federal funding, the fact that it was 3 years, I wrote in 6-month follow-ups and 12-month follow-ups. So the women, they were women 60 up into their 80s. They would come in, they do the training, take personality tests pre and post. They had the same range of benefits as the younger people who'd done the training. But then we started bringing them back at 6 months. And to our astonishment, their personality profiles were better 6 months later than they were the day or days after the training. And I'm
mm,
going like, "Now how can this be?" Another 6 months go by, we bring them back at the 12-month follow-up, and there were further improvements.
mm.
This is when I realized that we're not doing treatment, we're doing transformation.
Yes,
As you read in my bio, integrative neurotransformation. If you change your brainwaves, you change your experience. If you change your
yes.
brainwaves enough, you change your identity. This is what we call transformation or transcendence.
Yes, and you like to say that that's the person is becoming their real self, their
Mhm.
authentic self. It's who
Yeah.
they are that's been covered up by ego and anxiety and trauma, unhealed forgiveness, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That begins to be dissolved,
Mhm. Mhm.
transmuted, and then who
Yeah.
they really are shows up.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so it's definitely spiritual technology.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah,
Spiritual
this is what.
science.
Yeah, spiritual science. Yeah. I mean, I've loved it, which is why I've gone back a number of times.
Mhm.
Now, one of the things
5
you say,
times.
has it been 5? Because I've got all the way up
Yes.
to what? Alpha what? Alpha.
You've done Alpha 5.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah. Your next one is Alpha 6. Unless you wanna go into Theta, you're eligible for Theta also.
Well, you and I will have a discussion and see what emerges from our dialogue. Um,
Uh-huh.
Now, you connect emotional trauma with blocked progress and
Mhm,
suboptimal brain waves. Now, this is
mhm,
what you're clearing up with this
mhm.
technology. And I want you to define forgiveness in your own way. And I want you to tell the story about the man who said that received his initiation from Paramahansa Yogananda, but he had
Oh,
some
yes.
difficulty in raising his alpha.
Oh, yes.
Remember that?
I
Yeah.
do, I do.
Well, you can tell the story first, and then we can get into
Sure.
forgiveness. Yeah.
Okay. When the man came for training, he was 71. He had been doing the Yogananda meditation for 35 years, every day, never missed a day. And, when he sat in his chair, you would think that he was like the perfect meditator. Posture was perfect and very still, but inside, he was a deeply embittered old man.
Mm,
Now, we have, as you remember, we have these computerized mood scales that measure not only your conscious moods, but unconscious. And so the mood scale detected that there was a lot of anger there, which he denied. He put 0, but the computer went, "Oh, I don't think so." So I asked him about it, and he said, "Well, I'm angry at my sister." I said, "I didn't know you had a sister." He goes, "Well, I haven't talked to her for 25 years." And I go, "Oh, well, you need to forgive your sister." I found he had 10 other siblings, and he was on the outs with all of them. So
wow.
he goes into the chamber, and he does the forgiveness, and the next day, the sister called his place of work She hadn't talked to him for 25 years. And they said, oh, he's in California doing some kind of a program. And because she could prove that he was sister, they gave her his hotel number. She called the next morning. They put him through, and brother and sister were reunited. It was so incredible. And I could tell you bunches of stories of where people had been on the outs with loved ones, family members for decades, and they do the forgiveness, and the next day the person contacts them on Facebook or sends them an email.
Right. In this particular case, he was in his own mind, he was meditating. He had received some type of initiation from the Paramahansa Yogananda. Kriya Yoga. But he had a block with his forgiveness.
Right.
And so he wasn't getting all the benefits of the meditation that he was practicing.
Exactly. You can do the form of meditation, but unless you have the right brainwaves, you're not going to have the states of consciousness, the experience. One time I had somebody in training, actually was part of the Zen study in which I learned the brainwaves of halos. He had been meditating every day, twice a day for 10 years. And what little alpha he had in his eyes closed baseline went away when he started his Zen meditation. And the Zen master called him still a beginner, because we know what that is. It's called trying.
He was trying too hard.
Yes.
He was trying to get to some future state.
Yep.
And so it was blocking him from being where he was and to expand his awareness. So when a person actually forgives, what do the brainwaves look like?
Well, we do it. Let me go back just a little. Sir John Templeton was a very ardent supporter of forgiveness research. And he had a good friend who was George Gallup of Gallup Poll. And every couple of years, Sir John would say to George, you should do another poll on Americans for forgiveness. And so I had to read the details of one of them. 80% of Americans said they thought forgiveness was extremely important when given the choices: 0, not at all; 1, little; 2, moderate; 3, quite a bit; and 4, extremely. 80% said it was extremely important. So then the Gallup pollsters asked these people who knew forgiveness was extremely important if they could do it. 85% said no. Their attempts at prayer didn't work. Asking for God's help didn't work. There was only one thing that they reported worked for effective forgiveness, and that was meditative prayer. When you put the word adverb meditative in front of verb, like meditative gardening, meditative fishing, meditative sewing, meditative praying, I see bigger alpha waves. So in a sense, George Gallup's research is showing us that effective prayer requires, for effective forgiveness requires meditative prayer. In other words, increased alpha. So we set up our alpha protocol where people, they bring in, some judges like Jesus, some angels, high beings. Then they bring in somebody that they have a grudge against. They charge them and they go into feeling the pain. You have to connect with the pain if you're going to pull it out. And so proof that you've connected with the pain is that their alpha drops. So all their scores turn white and the numbers are white. Then we ask them to, 1, decide to forgive. 2, look for some good that came from it. 3, walk in the person's shoes, see it from their point of view. And with that, hopefully you can go to compassion, maybe hug them and even go all the way to love. And as we're doing this, the scores coming up being blue and green, they know that their alpha is going up, and so they're encouraged to keep forgiving as long as the alpha is rising. And that way they can be very, very thorough in their forgiveness.
You're reminding me of the fact that years ago, I used to be the director of training at a World Ministry of Prayer.
Wow.
And so I trained the practitioners how to answer the phone, how to pray for the people. And I had an alpha machine that expanded their alpha waves. And I would use this machine on them, and I would explain to them that unless you are producing a higher level of brain coherency, you're just saying words to people. You're not really praying for them.
Yes.
And within 5 years of me doing that, the prayer ministry grew tremendously, and even brought in like $1 million profit net, because people were getting real results from these practitioners. Now, I didn't know what I was really doing then, but I knew about the alpha machine.
But you had God's guidance. You were doing the right thing.
I had God's guidance, and people thought I was crazy. back
No,
in those days. And
lies.
then fast forward, a number of years later, I meet you,
Mhm.
and if you've taken this thing to a whole nother level. But I try to tell people, you know, meditation, I call what I do when I'm teaching or speaking, I call it meta talking, you
Oh,
know,
love it.
because
Love it.
I do nothing without meditation. I'm
Mhm.
going to meditation, I get what I need to speak about, and then it'll flow through me. So I call it meta talking or meta teaching.
Beautiful.
But it's
Beautiful.
exactly what you just said, it's meditative prayer.
Mhm.
And so basically what your technology does, it actually assists an individual in releasing the static so that they can have a higher level of coherence, produce more alpha, changes their brain waves. They go through a transformation because the debris starts to dissolve, and then
Mhm.
they're able to live a life more coherent with who they really are. So creativity goes up, compassion goes up, IQ goes up, which is who we are without the debris.
Yeah, exactly.
So and I know you had to do a lot with trial and error. I mean, in the beginning, some of the things you were working with were rudimentary. They were advanced at the time, but now your system is quite profound.
Mhm.
And you have worked with, how many people do you think you've worked with? Uh,
About 7,000.
7,000 people.
Yeah.
Who and those 7,000 people are affecting people.
Oh, yes. We've actually measured that.
Mhm.
When I was in Canada for 10 years, we had a $6 million scholarship from Alan Markin, to whom you introduced me. Thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
And he sent people from his company and over 200 Canadian Aboriginals for training. They were
Mhm.
deeply traumatized people. And so he offered to pay for 3 trainings for them, Alpha 1, Alpha 2, and Alpha 3. And the results were absolutely remarkable in terms of the trauma they had. They were more traumatized than returning war veterans, many of them.
Mm.
And they cleared that quite profoundly. In fact, at one point, I had a Cree shaman woman, Doreen Spence, come, and she did Alpha 2 and 3 back to back. Now, her job, if you can call it that, was to travel around the world and lead vision quests for world leaders. That was her job. Well,
Mhm.
she said doing the Alpha 1, the Alpha 2 and 3 back to back was the most powerful spiritual experience she'd had in her life.
Mm. It's intense. For anybody who's listening to us right now, it's it's intense. It's intense. You change.
Yes.
You become more yourself. So this expands spiritual awareness, obviously.
Mhm, mhm.
And we mentioned this earlier, but people can open up and have the capacity to see the angelic realm.
Right, there's a brainwave pattern for that, we call it
Yeah.
angel pattern, and
Mhm.
everybody who's ever come in with that pattern, when I
Mhm.
ask them, "Do you see angels?" Some of them go, "How do you know? I've never told anyone." Well,
Yeah,
I see
right.
it in your brainwaves. I've also had people who didn't have the pattern when they came in, but developed it in the course of the week and started to see angels. So,
Mhm.
this is one of the things I need your guidance for because we know a brainwave pattern that's trainable that will allow people to see and communicate with angels. And I need your help. I'm asking your help. How do we inform people about this and how do we select the right people?
Mhm. Well, you're informing a lot of people right now, thousands of people. When this particular conversation is released. So you're asking, how do we inform people, one, and
Yeah,
two, how do we pick the right people?
right.
Yeah. So a lot of these people are gifted. They're like their calling has been like to be a medium
Mhm.
or an oracle, and they were born. A lot of these people, like I have a good friend of mine who, um, that's what she does for a living. She was born that way,
Mhm.
and so if she took BioCybernaut, it would only enhance her
Oh, yeah.
natural born gift.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Every psychic, healer, or and any one of those people who's ever come to BioCybernaut expand their gift. I've actually had people send psychics who were in their employ as their business to BioCybernaut to help them be more effective in their work.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting. I mean, it's just beautiful. I mean, I'm always fascinated by this. It's very close to me, very real to me. Talk to us about the halo brainwaves. What does that mean?
Okay.
I'm asking
Um,
questions that I kind of know because I've been around
yeah,
you, but
sure.
I have to open this up for the population
There
here.
was a 20-year journey for me to discover the brainwaves of halos. It started out with me having Suzuki Roshi, the famous Zen master, bring 30 of his monks for recording of their Zazen meditation in my lab at UCSF. I was with Joe Kamiya at his lab. And then, so these brainwave meditations are on FM tape. Well, one Christmas day when the whole hospital was shut down, I went into the EEG systems lab where I had documented a program. I read the assembly code for a program that did power and coherence spectral analysis, and I ran all these tapes through. And so I got brainwave power spectrum, and I got coherence spectrum. Well, and I confirmed everything that Kasumatsu and Hirai had found about the difference between beginning, intermediate, and advanced Zen. But what I had now was also coherence, which is different from amplitude. And in Suzuki Roshi, I saw a bimodal coherence. He had simultaneous coherence in theta and in alpha.
Wow.
And he had at the back of the head, he had the side of the head. And of the 30 monks that he brought for training, only one of them had a little bit of that pattern. That was Dick Baker. He was rated advanced. Now, I didn't know what it meant, but 1 out of 30, that's statistically significant. So I made a presentation at a conference, showed the brainwaves. And then I went back to my work. I didn't know what it meant. 7 years later, Suzuki Roshi dies. He sent out notices like, next Thursday, I'm leaving my body, come on by. And there were 45 people in the room. And some of them were indirectly known to me. And when he'd left his body, people in the room felt something leave his body, travel across the room, and invest itself into, guess who? Dick Baker,
Right.
who became Baker Roshi. And so this is called giving transmission. Now, a lot of people couldn't understand. Why did you do that? I knew exactly why. Because Suzuki Roshi had spent a lifetime, maybe lifetimes, creating this consciousness, which was conveyed by, among other things, this bimodal coherence. And as he looked out in the room, the only one who had a receptacle to receive any of it was Dick Baker. So he gave transmission to Dick Baker. So now I'd make another paper. This is, wow, more exciting. It's a marker for Zen Roshi. I still didn't know what it meant. 11 years later, I'm invited to a conference on chaos theory as applied to analysis of brainwaves. Well, the papers were very mathematical and so on. But Dr. Arnold Mandel, former chair of the UC Davis Psychiatry Department, who resigned to become a math professor because he loved math so much, taught me and a group of 2,500 people in the room that if you have two coherent signals and you convolve them, you will get a torus in phase. What's a torus? Well, it's a bagel. It's a donut. It's a cylinder bent into a circle. And there's 2,500 people in the room. I'm in the next to the last row in the center section. I jumped out of my seat, hollered at the top of my lungs, I've got two people in my database, and one who showed that pattern. One was a Zen master, and the other got transmission when the Zen master died. So Dr. Mandel was most gracious. He invited me to talk with him afterwards. When I put my first foot on the stage, he said, "You must be a psychologist and a physicist." I go, "Well, yeah, how do you know that?" And he goes, "Well, only somebody with those two disciplines could possibly have this data." So having a halo, which is a torus in phase space, and Dr. Mandel said, you go to any PhD level electrical engineer and you ask them what happens if you convolve two coherent signals. They will tell you you will get a torus in phase space. People who can see auras can see it. And it's a trainable pattern.
This is what's beautiful about what you're saying. All of this is trainable.
Yes.
With the right practice. And
Yes.
what feedback does, it gives you nanosecond feedback, whereas someone that's just sitting in meditation, they may or may not be meditating.
Millisecond feedback.
How many inputs, how much data is coming in per millisecond?
Well, we're measuring 16 different filters on 8 different head sites. So it's 128 pieces of data. And we're sampling that 100 times a second. Every one of those, we're sampling 100 times a second. Currently, we're giving the feedback on the tones 50 times a second, but we could speed that up. And I think probably that's something that we're going to do as people get into more advanced trainings.
Now, the beautiful thing about this is feedback itself.
Yeah.
That oftentimes people may be sitting doing their mantra, they may be practicing, but they're not getting any feedback, letting them know
That's the
whether or not
problem.
they're having any level of coherence or not.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
not that anything's going wrong, not that they're not be improving at some level, but when you have feedback,
Yeah.
it just exacerbates, maximizes your potential.
Try driving your car with your eyes closed.
Right,
If you go slowly and you bump into things and back up, I mean, you can maybe make some progress, but
right,
you need constant feedback.
yeah. So in the case of the Roshi, that was he was the feedback because he could see in his students what was happening or what was not happening. In the old days, they hit him with a little stick or something,
Right.
bring your
Yes.
attention back or something like that. But
Don't sleep during your
don't
meditation.
sleep during your meditation. You can meditate while sleeping, but don't sleep while meditating.
Right.
And so your feedback is like the little Zen stick. Sound goes up, woo, you're doing well. Sound
Mhm.
goes down, you're not doing so well.
Right.
Uh-huh. And so you're able to discern the difference between someone's imagination. They're imagining that they're becoming enlightened
Mhm.
versus a person that's actually waking up.
Right.
Uh-huh. Now I'll tell a personal story. One time I was in the chamber and uh, I was making a lot of noise. I mean, there was a lot of level of coherence,
Yeah, big alpha, dude.
big alpha. And all of a sudden the Gautama the Buddha is walking down the path towards me.
Mhm.
And as soon as I turned my attention to the Buddha, the sound stopped.
Mhm.
And as soon as I turned my attention away from the Buddha and went back to what I was
Mhm.
practicing, the sound emerged, which let me know the ego was sending me something to distract my attention.
Mhm.
You know, my imagination was saying, "Oh, the Buddha's coming. This is going to be really
Yeah.
good. You're going to
Whoopee, whoopee.
you're going to be enlightened." But it was the ego
Uh-huh.
sending me
Yep.
something to distract me from the practice that I was doing. And
Now, one of the things that could have been done there would be w don't look at the Buddha. Have
yeah,
your inner eyes closed. Reach out with your feelings to the Buddha, because any visual is gonna lower your alpha.
right.
With your heart, reach out to the Buddha, and then the tones, the alpha could get bigger and the tones could get louder.
Yeah. I just stopped looking at the Buddha and just went
Yes,
back to what I was doing. And then the tones expanded again,
yes.
but I was not caught by that again, you know.
Well, I have a question. When there have been times where you've come for training, every single day you've written a beautiful poem. Could
Mhm.
you go into your memory a little bit and share with us the process by which you did that creation of those poetry?
You know, it's interesting. Yeah, my poetry's coming back again. I'm writing my
Ah,
poetry again.
uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Okay, so I'm in alpha. It would just emerge from me, and I had access to that part of me that could write lyrics, that could write poetry. A lot of that even happens now in my dream state,
Mm,
or when I go to sleep at night on a Saturday night. I'll ask, you know, give me a sentence as to what I should be speaking about tomorrow,
mhm,
and I'll get just a sentence. I don't get a whole
mm,
talk.
mm,
But that sentence becomes a portal, an opening through which I can go into flow state. You
mhm.
know, I'll start talking and then I go into flow state, meta talking, and then it
Yeah.
happens. But I'm starting to do poetry again.
Awesome,
Yeah,
awesome.
it's flowing. So I'm glad you brought that up. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about AI in the future of
Mhm.
brain training.
Yep.
I mean,
Okay.
are you using AI in any way?
Oh, we are, extensively.
Uh-huh.
And for the latest paper that I just had accepted for publication in a British journal, EC, Psychology and Psychiatry, talks about the sustainable increases in IQ that we have documented.
Hmm.
And, um, I used AI one way as a research assistant. Like, I said, "Okay, AI, go out into all the world's libraries and bring me all the science that all other scientists have found of brainwave correlates of high IQ." And it came back with 5 things: high alpha,
Hmm.
highly coherent alpha. They're different. You can have
Yes.
high alpha, but it doesn't necessarily be coherent with alpha elsewhere in the head. And then surprisingly, the ability to suppress your high alpha when you're working on a problem. A
Hmm.
third, yep, yep. A third one is frontal theta. And the fifth one is faster alpha. Smarter people tend to alpha's a range, 8 cycles per second to 13. And smarter people tend to have faster alpha. And
Mhm.
so the first 4 we train directly in the course of the alpha training. Higher alpha, more coherent alpha. We practice suppression. We're actually reinterpreting to people the importance of suppression because, yeah, you want to have high alpha, but you want to be able to profoundly suppress it when you're working on a problem. That's one of the characteristics of very intelligent, high IQ people. And
So
then
let
we
me
know.
get this, yeah, let me get this
Go ahead.
straight.
Yeah.
High alpha,
Yeah.
creativity, etc.
Uh-huh.
When you're working on a problem, you want to suppress the alpha so
Yep.
that you can become what, more focused, or why is
Well,
that?
it
Why
goes
does that
along with,
work?
well, remember when you looked at the Buddha, what happened to your alpha?
Yeah, it
It
went down.
suppressed. Yeah.
Mhm,
And so when people are using visualization to solve a problem, their alpha will suppress.
mhm,
And the more vivid the visualization, the more the alpha would suppress. And so high IQ has characteristics: high alpha, high coherent alpha, and the ability to suppress that high alpha profoundly when working on a problem, the frontal theta, and then also faster alpha. And we train all of these. So it's
mhm.
not surprising that we're getting sustainable increases in IQ because with the help of AI, I learned that everything that we're doing in the alpha training is what causes high IQ in people in the first place.
Hmm. Wow. This
Now,
is
but the thing with AI goes further because I wanted for I'm just back from the Vatican where I had the great privilege of presenting on the brainwave patterns associated with seeing angels in the
yes.
Vatican. It was a real blessing. And I want your help in how to further explain this and talk to people about it. Because when I asked the AI Claude Sonnet for help with writing this paper, it gave me an answer. I mean, I should probably read it, but it said, "No, I won't help you with that because I will not engage in metaphysical or theological speculation." And I
That's what
go,
AI said?
"That's what the AI Claude Sonnet said." And
Uh-huh.
so I got help from Grok. I got help from Enoch, which is Mike Adams'
Mhm,
AI, and
mhm.
I got help from ChatGPT. They were all very helpful, but Claude Sonnet put its nose up in the air and said, "No, this is not scientific." So, as you know, when science develops in a new area, it begins with reports, scattered reports. You look for commonalities, then you form hypotheses, you do experiments, you look for reproducible. I've got all of that. But Claude Sonnet wasn't even willing to look at the evidence, which is emblematic of a problem in our culture about spiritual science. That's why I'm appealing to you for your help because we've got the science, we've got the data, and
Yeah.
now it's time to get it out there. And you, of all people, know how to do that.
Well, we're gonna have to have a sidebar conversation to see how I
Okay.
can benefit.
Yeah.
Um, Now, so for those who are skeptical, how do you distinguish meaningful spiritual insight from a person's just imagination?
Well, first of all, I love skeptics. The
Mhm,
reason being because skeptics are paying attention to the data.
mhm,
If you give them data, like for example, somebody has this brain. We'll give you an example. A Green Beret. I took the technology one time to a secret army base by invitation, and I did training for 12 U.S. Army Green Berets. Started out giving them an alpha baseline, eyes open, eyes closed, white noise, and then I had a private interview with each one. One of the 24 Green Berets had angel pattern. So I'm in this private room with him, and I'm like, big buff, warrior dude across the table. How do I pop the question? So finally I said, "You talk to beings that other people don't see." And he went back like I hit him with a 2x4. He's having a panic attack. He almost tipped over in his chair. He goes, "How do you know?" And I said, "Well, I see it in your brainwaves." "I've only told my best buddy on pain of death if he would ever tell anybody. How do you know?" And I said, "Well, you have a brainwave pattern that I've learned we call it angel pattern." And then he said, "Well, I don't see angels, but when I'm doing my martial arts training, this little old Asian martial arts master shows up and he teaches me and nobody else can see him." And so he's an astral plane being. He doesn't have wings, but he's an astral plane being. And with that brainwave pattern, people can see into the astral plane.
That's beautiful.
One woman had the angel pattern, but all her scores were over 2,000, which is very high. And I asked her if she saw angels. She goes, "Oh, There's hundreds of them around me all the time. So
Uh,
here's what I want to do. You know about shared feedback, where people can go into
yes,
the
yes, yes.
chamber, get on the same wavelength. And they form a group mind. This is, see, the way that humans will compete with group mind with AI is as follows. The two things that make a powerful processor are one, processing speed and big memory. Well, right now, AI's got us. But humans that can contact the Akashic records have access to an unlimited database of all knowledge that was, is, and ever will be. And then when we can put human brains together in shared feedback, so we have parallel processors, there we have huge processing power. Most people I've ever linked together in one chamber was 8, and they all had telepathic experiences. So we want to train people to access the Akashic records and to do shared feedback, and also to contact the angelic realm. That way the human group mind can access the Akashic records and communicate with angels. And this is how we are going to evolve humanity in every dimension, including spiritually. And AI will not be able to keep up.
Absolutely. I did a talk recently in which I was uh, distinguishing AI, artificial intelligence, from actual intelligence,
Uh-huh.
and reminding people that, of course, we have the greatest uh, technology with who we are. And then you have the quantum field and the Akashic records, which has infinite potential, infinite possibilities, and all knowledge, so that we love AI. We don't put it
Yeah.
down, but
Yeah.
don't let it suppress your understanding of actual intelligence and actually activating your potential.
Yep.
Don't let it dwarf you. Don't let it become a prosthetic so that it dwarfs who you are and your
Mhm.
own unfolding with the practices
Amen.
we're talking about today. So
Mhm.
anyone who's tuning in right now, this particular conversation, I hope you were able to rock a lot of it. Some of it was technical, but understand that what he has here is a technology that does provide the context for spiritual insight, does provide the context to eliminating trauma and fear and anxiety. It does provide the context to eliminate that which is blocking you from seeing you, so that you're actually becoming a better version of yourself. This is real stuff. And this is James Hart. And he probably won't want me to say this, but this man is a genius. In his field, there's no one close to him. But also, he not only has theory, he has the actual technology that proves everything that he is saying. And at one point we were talking about, we didn't do it in this particular interview. He was going to bring in some of my brain waves, and he said, we can show people this, that you're really real. When you
You are real.
you're really activating people. This is like the real
Yeah.
deal. Your brain
Yeah.
waves are right here.
Well, and people can influence other people
Right,
with their brainwaves. People
right.
with more powerful alpha actually to make changes in other people's brainwave frequencies. Now, I do have a 2-hour Zoom recording of the presentation I made at the Vatican. And we
Mhm.
can give your listeners a link to that so they
Oh,
can go in and actually showed the brainwave data. For example, Her Holiness Satya Saima Lakshmi Devi came and did the training. She sees
mhm,
angels. I
mhm,
saw that in her brainwaves. As
mhm,
she went through her 7 days of training, her ability to see angels got more powerful.
mhm,
And so, but there's evidence. We show her actual brainwaves, the scores and the actual EEG tracings, the polygraph. We have this for angel perception. We have it for halos. We have it for reading Akashic records. We have it for raising Kundalini. And so the scientific data is there. And if your listeners want to actually see that, uh, Brian recorded a Zoom call where I was teaching this to some trainees, but it was based on the text of my talk to the Vatican.
We want to include that. Tell people where to find you, how to get in touch with you, your website, um, so that they can know more about BioCybernaut.
Okay, the website, and we just have a new one, I think, as of Monday, is biocybernaut.com. That's BIOCYBERNAUT.com. And I want to give your listeners a gift. If they would like a free PDF copy of my book, The Art of Smart Thinking, they can type biocybernaut.com/bonus, and they can download a free PDF copy of The Art of Smart Thinking.
Outstanding. This has been beautiful, James. I'm so glad to reconnect with you in this way. And
I'm so happy, brother.
everyone, you've heard him. Now you know how to be in contact with him. If you feel moved to actually participate and go to BioCybernaut, go ahead and sign up. Tell James you heard it on the podcast, and your life will not be the same. I'll guarantee you that. It will not be the same. You're going to eliminate some trauma, unforgiveness. You're going to eliminate some unconscious beliefs that no longer serves you. It's meditation, but on steroids. Why? Why is it on steroids? Because of the feedback.
Yeah.
The moment, the second by second, millisecond, excuse me, feedback that you get lets you know whether you are actually meditating or not.
Well, let me give you an example. I can put my hand behind my head, close my eyes, and bring together my thumb and each finger. I don't have to look because I have feedback. My brain has feedback about everything in my body. I know where my left foot is. I know where my right elbow is. But curiously, the brain has no feedback about itself and what it's doing. It's like a missing link. We give the brain the feedback that it's got for everything else in the body except itself.
That's interesting. So we're giving the brain feedback as to where it is at any given second.
Yep. And that's transformational.
Right. Beautiful. All right, Brother James, this has been good. Any last minute comments that just going to flow through you?
Well, I look forward to when next you can come to BioCybernaut, whether you're doing Alpha 6 or whether you're doing Theta 1. We should talk about that because I have an experience that I had. I recently, a few months ago, I redid the Alpha 6 program. And on day 6 of my Alpha 6, I had such a profound experience. I want to actually share that with you. And
All
so
right.
you see if you want to go for that or if you want to start with Theta.
All right, I'll give you a call and we'll talk about it. Any
Marvelous.
last words you want to say to these beautiful people listening to you?
Oh, thank you for being in the presence of Brother Michael, Sir, Reverend Dr. Michael Bernard Beckwith, a very dear friend, a very high spiritual teacher. I am blessed to know you, Michael. Thank
And
you.
Doctor, I am blessed to know you. I do not take you for granted. I know who you are. God bless you.
God bless you.
Hey, everyone. This is Michael B. Beckwith here at Take Back Your Mind. Hope you enjoyed this conversation and you can feel our enthusiasm for transformation and join us at the peril of your ego.
Yeah, that's right.
The ego can be your friend, but you have to understand how to manage all of that. Well, that's a whole other conversation. We could talk for hours.
Truly.
This is part one of a conversation with
Yeah.
Dr. James. Okay, this is part one. All right. Peace and blessings, everyone.
Peace and blessings. Bye.
Peace and dynamic blessings. Many of you have written letters about how much you really appreciate the Take Back Your Mind podcast and the life questions. So appreciate those letters. Now, our particular program here, these episodes, it's powered by spiritual purpose, but it also has powerful sponsorship. The primary sponsor is Agape International Spiritual Center. So everything that goes on here, Agape is behind it. So what I want you to do, I want you to support the Take Back Your Mind podcast. Go to agapelive.com, make a donation, put a little indication that you're supporting the podcast in that donation, or text the word give to 424-321-6243. Write the word podcast so we know you're supporting this wonderful program of Take Back Your Mind. The secondary sponsor is Neutralize. This is the company that actually produces my particular supplemental line called Adaptozen. I have the super greens, I have the Elevate fermented mushrooms, and a number of other products that are emerging. Just go to Neutralize.com, find Adaptozen, and you know what? Uplift your spirit, uplift your body. Remember to share all of this with your friends and support our wonderful sponsor. Have a beautiful day. Dynamic blessings, and this is our opportunity in this particular part of Take Back Your Mind to practice the art and science of meditation, which is extremely important for what? Transformation, going beyond the present formation of your life, which is the condensation of your previously thoughts, beliefs, opinions, points of view that has condensed itself into the formation of your life. Sometimes we call that a mental equivalent. But through meditation, you prime yourself for spiritual insights and revelations that allow you to expand your awareness of that which is real. You have an inner realization, and then the fruit of the Spirit begin to show up in your life. Greater degree of peace, deep sense of oneness with all of life, unity, no longer feeling separated. These are just some of the things that occur when you have spiritual insight. And spiritual insight is what we're all about as we're practicing the art and the magnificent science of meditation. Let's start right now. Your feet on the ground, not crossing your legs, not crossing your arms, not crossing anything. Put your feet down, back straight, not rigid, straight. Now let yourself be aware that you can right now think about, you can become aware of your left knee without even looking at it or touching it. Be aware that you can put your attention on your right pinky toe and not even touch it or look at it. You can place your awareness, your attention wherever you want it. Now, place your attention right on your heart space. And feel such a magnificent degree of love. Divine love. The total givingness of the Spirit. Just feel the music of your soul burgeoning up as divine love. Place your attention there. And let's allow this love feeling to invade our body temple, our entire body temple. This is total love. You are rich enough to pay attention. You're aware of the feeling tone of love emanating from your heart space. Even now, be still and to know that I am God in the midst of you. Eyes closed, feet on the ground, heart open. The external world is transitory. But where you are living is in the sweet kingdom or queendom of God. Expanded awareness. It's not transitory. You can come here anytime you want. For this we give thanks. We give thanks. We give thanks. And we allow it to be so. And so it is. Amen. Peace and blessings, everyone. Your time is very valuable. So I want to thank you for tuning in to Take Back Your Mind. If you want to submit a life question, please do so. Email us at podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. And perhaps one day I'll be answering your question that will touch the lives of so many. If you've enjoyed the show, you might as well submit a 5-star review. You might as well tell your friends and family. Let's spread the love. Until we meet again, maintain your awareness. Take back your mind. Because when you take back your mind, you take back your life. Peace and blessings.